Dear students, welcome back to the video of Theory C of 4.1 Data and Tables. We're going to take a look at what interpolation and extrapolation is. Let's take a look at how the theory starts explaining this. The table below contains data on the consumption of fizzy drinks in the Netherlands. And then you see in the table both the years and the liters. You see it goes up, sort of, stays steady, goes up, and then it goes down at the end. Okay. You know, or you see that not every year is given. You have 75, 80, 85, 90, 95, so it's every time 5 years in between. Then it's 7 years, 8 years, and then 4 years. Depends maybe on when they did, when they asked people to answer those questions, right? First was once in 5 years, and then it changes. That's okay. But sometimes we want to say something about a date that's in between those dates. For example, I want to say something about not 1995, but for example 1998. And then it's good to make a sort of estimation of what it can be. If I know in 1995 the total consumption was 81 liters and in 2002 it was 94, I could take a look at how much liter was consumed extra per year. This is 13 liters more over 7 years, so approximately 13 over 7 liters more per year. I divide the total amount that is added by the amount of years that I have to divide it over. And you see that's approximately 1 point something, right? And then that means that in 1998, we are 3 years after 1995. If I add 1 year, I will do plus 13 over 7. 2 years, 13 over 7 plus 13 over 7. For 3 years, 13 over 7 plus 13 over 7 plus 13 over 7 extra. That's the same as a multiplication, right? 81 plus 3 times what would be added per year. This is an estimate because we are going to assume that every year this amount is going to be added in a linear way, in a straight way. I will show you that's not always the case. If you're going to use this method to find something that's in between two dates, we call that interpolation. Inter is Latin for in between. You can also use this method to take a look at something that's outside of your table in the future. Then we call it extrapolation, with extra meaning outside. I will show you how to do that later as well. For extrapolation, use the last two data points I will show you in a second. What I want you to be careful of is this last theory is all about interpolation and extrapolation. It's good to know how to do it. However, in real life, things like this don't always work. Okay, so I am going to show you how to use interpolation to estimate the data value in between two values and extrapolation to estimate the data value outside a range. But this is all assuming things go in a straight line. And actually, this is not in the book, but I always find it nice to show you this. This is out of a book, Factfulness, a great book that I would advise you to read once, which is about certain instincts that people have. For example, people like to focus on gaps, or people like to focus on their fear, or generalization of a single perspective, or blaming, or urgency, size. And you see, one of the instincts that we have is to take a look at things as if they would continue in a straight line. While in reality, right, rules of thumbs that you can use is, well, things don't always go in a straight line. That's important to know. And you see some other instincts also being countered. Sometimes there is no really a gap. If you only hear negative news, does the improvement get the same amount of attention or not? Yes, something is very big, but is it big in comparison, right? What am I comparing it to? It never changes, or it changes slowly, is something entirely different, etc. I'll focus on 3 because 3 has to do with interpolation and extrapolation, mainly extrapolation. For example, if I'm going to show you the world population from 1200 up to 2100, you see it's kind of steady. The scan is a bit wobbly, but you understand what it means. And you see all of a sudden it's the end of the 18th century, the 19th century, and now the 20th and the 21st century. This line seems to go up in a staggering way. If this would be a straight line. In 2100 we would have 15 billion people on Earth. So if you are going to use interpolation and use the last two values, you would get a very high number. Well, in reality, this line is already curving. That means it's important to know when you can extrapolate and when you can't. Here, extrapolating would give you a much larger value than it really would be. And some examples I sometimes give when I discuss this are about games as well. For example, Grand Theft Auto, first released every 2 years. Once it even was 1 year apart, then 2, then 4, then 5. Yeah, you would then expect that GTA 6 was already out, right? But it isn't, because release dates like this cannot be extrapolated. Same thing with the Elder Scrolls. 4 years, 6 years, 4 years, 5 years, yeah, and we're still waiting. The date is still not known. While some games you can extrapolate very well, if I ask my students this, they often always come up with, for example, FIFA, which comes out every year in the same month, almost on the same day, actually. So again, be careful. Sometimes you can extrapolate, sometimes you can't. In the examples we are going to do, we're going to assume we can. Okay. So the table below contains data on Intermac's revenue. You see dates given here with the revenue in millions of euros underneath. Use interpolation to estimate the revenue in 1998. 1998 is between 1995 and 2000. So we're going to use those two columns here. Between 2000 and 1995 there is 5 years, and the revenue has decreased by 8.3 minus 6.5 is 1.8. Less over 5 years, so 1.8 divided by the difference in years is 1.8 over 5 less per year. I am 3 years in the future, from 1995 to 1998. So what I would do is I take the standard revenue that I had in 1995, and yeah, this time you would subtract because we're going down, right? So then you subtract 3 times what you would do per year. 3 because from 1995 to 1998 is 3 years. So minus 3 times 1.8 over 5. And then you round approximately 7.2 million euros. Use the same accuracy as the data. So here you round to 1 decimal point. Here I do as well. It's in millions, so don't forget to write millions here. Otherwise this Intermac only made 7.2 euros. That's not that much. So don't forget the million in your answer. Use extrapolation to estimate the revenues in 2023. Extra because it's outside of my data. And an agreement we made is that we use the last two data points that we have. So to extrapolate, we're going to use 2010 and 2017. Don't use 95 and 2017, the last two data points. From 2010 to 2017 is 7 years. And this time I have an increasement from 9.7 to 12.4. So I have 2.7 more in 7 years. So per year, that's 2.7 over 7 more per year. How much years do I go into the future? From 2017 to 2023 is 6 years. So I take my starting amount in 2017 plus 6 times what I would do per year. So 12.4, that's my starting amount, plus 6 times, because I'm 6 years in the future, from 2017 to 2023, what I would do per year, and then I round again, and then my answer is 14.7 million euros. So it's important that you know how to interpolate, and it's important that you know how to extrapolate. Inter is in between, and extra is into the future, outside of my data points. And that's it. And in Dutch, I didn't translate it during the explanation. Very easy. Interpolatie en extrapolatie. Of interpoleren en extrapoleren wordt het soms ook wel genoemd. Good luck!